This is Darren Kuhn with the Masculine Journey podcast, where we search the ancient paths to find ways that God brings light into a dark world and helps set men free from the struggles that we all face on a day-to-day basis. Your Chosen Truth Network podcast is starting in just a few seconds. Enjoy it, share it, but most of all, thank you for listening and for choosing the Truth Podcast Network.
This is the Truth Network.
I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter. I'll be your armor.
Welcome to the Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I say this calls for action, and now.
It is a reality rescue today on the Christian Car Guy Show. How fun. We are live. Actually, today you might hear in the background a lot of different things, but we are live in Asheboro, North Carolina, because we are at the Rescue Run. And the Rescue Run has to do with the Invictus Project, and you're going to learn all about that. You're going to learn about, we all need a reality rescue. In fact, as I think you learn more about what they're running about today, which has to do with helping in this whole issue of sexual exploitation of children and things of that nature, which make it a little bit of a sensitive, subject today. So if you got little ones, you don't want to hear some stuff like that, you may want to, choose another time to listen, however that may go. But anyway, I can guarantee you, your eyes will be open. My eyes were open because I think that the more we think about things, I don't think I have any sense of how good God is. I really don't think my reality is anywhere close to how good God is. But on the other hand, my reality is nowhere close to how evil is, and all the things that they are trying to work to separate us from the Father, especially the younger they can separate them from the Father, the better that they can. And we are so blessed to have with us Ray Dawson, who was...
Robert, before you go into that, because one of the things you said was, if you got young kids, you may not want to be listening. But I will encourage, if you have young kids, have conversations with them, because what you're going to hear today, it's easy to think, well, that's another world. That's something I'm not living through, something that I don't have to worry about. But you know what? It's with everything. Sometimes we shield the truth from our kids instead of educating them, and that's...
No, I couldn't agree with you more. These are conversations that will make your kids feel a lot more comfortable coming with you, especially when you agree, Ray, that these are conversations we need to have.
Well, absolutely. I think that the days of, sheltering our children from the reality of this threat that they're dealing with, right? This is in their space. These predators are hunting them in these virtual spaces online, and a lot of times that we as adults or parents or people in trust that are over children, we want to shelter those children, and we have our solution to that problem is, as long as they're in the bedroom, if they're in the house, they're safe, they're in their bedroom, they're safe, I know where they're at. But we leave them on these social devices and access to social media and these platforms that these predators hunt on. So absolutely, I believe the time has come that we have to include our children in this solution, right? That's the awareness part of it, is to make our children aware and parents aware, so they have the safeguards in place to be able to help their children navigate a technologically advancing society.
Right. So just to give it in context just a little bit, right? If You know, we're here in Randolph County, North Carolina, and this is going to be the same in your county. I would almost guarantee it. But in Randolph County, North Carolina, prior to COVID, they had, 4,000 cases that they, investigated on child exploitation.
Yes. So, well, that's in the state of North Carolina. The state of North Carolina had about 4,000, little over 4,000, what we call cyber tips. Cyber tips are when an image of a child, an image that depicts the sexual abuse, exploitation, rape of a child, is uploaded, and that image is tracked. It is manifest itself in a cyber tip. And so those are cases that law enforcement work. And in North Carolina, the 2019, we had just over 4,000 of those cases.
But today, here we are only 7 months into 2024. What are we sitting at?
Oh, we way eclipsed that. So last year, our numbers were just over 26,000. And we're on pace right now to probably get somewhere close to about 30,000 tips in the state of North Carolina. And the thing to realize in that is that it's been about a 585% increase in cyber tips since 2019 in the state of North Carolina, and there's not been hardly any increase in the number of law enforcement officers that are investigating those crimes.
Right, and so thus the need for runs, an Invictus Project, and part of the reason that God gave you the vision, because, we need a reality rescue. These things, the day of the van pulling up in the they still could happen at the park, but what's really going on, the one that just sticks out in my mind that is just crazy, that you never would have thought your son would be so vulnerable, but your sons are unbelievably vulnerable because, they're on Snapchat or they're on whatever, and a young lady they think sends them an invitation to connect. They get friendly, and then late one night, all of a sudden she sends him a picture, a very graphic picture, and after he, gets his eye full of that, she says, now send me something from you. And the moment that he does that, what happens, right?
Yeah, the moment he does that, obviously a cyber tip can be generated, right? And then but not only that, and when we're dealing with our young people, so I will speak about this for just a minute so our audience understands that this is a very unique criminal enterprise, right? So in almost every criminal action, there is a supply and a demand, and there's an enforcement action on both sides of that, right? For drugs, you can arrest the drug dealer and the drug user. Here, it's very unique because there's no enforcement side on the demand side, or on the supply side, because they are victims. They're children, right? So when these children, these young boys are solicited for these images, they send those images, right? And so a couple of things can happen. Number one, a cyber tip generated, and a lot of time law enforcement, we're going to come knock on their door. But also what they're exposed to is what we call sextortion, where now these images can be threatened by the individual that solicited the child for these images. That young man can be extorted to send more videos or sometimes money, different things with the threat of we will put these images and send them to all of your family members and all of those kind of things. And we refer to that as sextortion. And that is a huge problem that's facing our young men and women today.
Right, and I think they said 7 out of 10 of those young men that happens to consider taking their life.
Yep. Yeah, that's obviously, that's a big issue. The second, third order effects of this that a lot of times we don't find out until after the fact, right, of how this impacts that young person.
Right, and so, again, it's a reality. We thought that this is what this looked like, sex trafficking and all that stuff. It's got a different face on it post-COVID, because all these children, we're taught you got to go in there and study on your computers, and the more thing that this is the environment that they're used to, and the predators take advantage of that. And so to raise this awareness, you guys got this run going on today, and share with us a little bit about what's going on here.
Yeah, so we have our rescue run, right? And just to talk just for a brief minute about what the Invictus Project is, we are a nonprofit that focuses domestically on the sexual exploitation and trafficking of children. And so we have a 3-pronged approach with that. It's education, advocacy, but the unique approach is our enforcement effort. We have an Invictus task force that's made up of 4 local sheriff's offices, the Department of Homeland Security, and the State Bureau of Investigations, where we are proactively, we have one purpose, and that is to proactively hunt pedophiles. That's what we do. It's a very unique concept, and it's just been a tremendous, we've seen tremendous results based on that. And what the run does, it is helping. What we do on the nonprofit side is we raise funds to help supplement those investigative efforts in real time, right? And the results that we have seen in the first 6 months of this has been just absolutely tremendous. And just to be clear, we didn't invent anything, right? We didn't invent anything. What we did was we came together with our local law enforcement partners, and the results that we have seen in the first 6 months is just an example of what law enforcement is capable of when they have the tools and resources and personnel to combat this problem.
Right, because the Invictus Project is law enforcement. You guys are law enforcement.
Yes, we have a law enforcement component to that. I am a sworn law enforcement officer. I am an investigator. I investigate these crimes. We also have a very robust education and advocacy program that we're building out, because we will not enforce our way out of this problem, Robbie. We just won't. We're going to have to educate our way out of this problem.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
It is a reality rescue today on the Christian Car Guy Show. So you're wondering, like, Robbie, what does this have to do with cars? Well, it's trafficking, and so, we just
Stretching it there, brother.
No, I think that all of us should be more and more aware of reality. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, that I have no concept of how good God is. I really, my reality needs to be stretched on that. But to an extent, I have no reality of how evil, how horrible evil is, as we heard from Ray Dawson, the founder of the Invictus Project.
We don't understand the power that Satan has and the avenues that he uses. I mean, we kind of always think of him that little cartoon character, but you know what?
It's diabolical.
Right.
Yeah. The things that he does, and I want to spend some time in the Bible here in a minute, sharing some reality that God shared with me that I found. I'll just tease it a little bit. The very first word that came out of Satan's mouth to Eve is actually in Hebrew, it's af, okay? But interestingly, it's the same first word that came out of the baker's mouth that got hung. It's the same first word that came out of Dathan's mouth that got the earth to swallow him up. And it is the first word that came out of Haman's mouth in the book of Esther, right when he was making his closing argument why Mordecai should be hung. And here's the one that grabbed me. I translated it back out of Hebrew in the Septuagint to Greek, and it's the first word that he said to Jesus during the temptation. Af. And then again when he said, so you're the Son of Man, if you're really the Son of God. Well, that beginning of that, you're really? Oh, really? That's that word, af. And it has to do with, what's truth? And it really, if you look at it, it's a picture language, Hebrew is, and it's almost like you're looking at the face of God. And what he's trying to do is change the face of reality. Put doubt in what God's word, however that may look. And when you open up that door, as obviously what happened, your reality begins to change. And so we need a reality rescue, right? That's what we're talking about today. And so very cool. None of this would happen. It's just amazing to me how God rises up people to come alongside. And one of the sponsors that I know you may not have heard of if you're in Seattle this morning, or if you happen to be in Ohio or wherever you are, but here locally in North Carolina, there's a Christian organization that we know as Dario, okay? And I know that they're Christian because, oh my goodness, the Wednesdays in the Word that they have all over the Triad and all the different things they do, but they're really one of the major sponsors of this Invictus Run. And we have Zachary Headmaker with us. And so, Zachary, welcome. It's great to have you with us, and what an honor, to be part of this.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, so tell me what you know about Dario's involvement with
Well, Dario wants to be part of the community. We are a Christian establishment, so we like to try to be out there trying to help people as much as we can. We help schools, churches, and this is one of the programs that we try to – we did it last year, and now it's spread out to more counties. Now we just want to be a bigger part of it. It's a growing movement, and we just want to help as many people as we can. So.
And one of the ways you help people is, if you haven't heard of Dario and you're visiting North Carolina, like if you go to Los Angeles, from what I understand, you got to eat that particular hamburger. What's it called? A something burger?
Favorite's the Monster Burger.
Yeah, whatever it is. But if you come to North Carolina, all you got to do is you got to come to Dario. And why, Zachary?
Well, it's just because we put people first. We like to put, the customers first. One of our prime
Well, let's talk food here. We want to make them hungry, okay?
Hungry.
So
hungry. I'm all about the hot dogs.
All right.
Hot dogs are it. All beef. We actually started selling this Bigfoot. Very good. It has a lot of juicy taste to it.
Bigfoot?
Yeah, it's called the Bigfoot.
What is the Bigfoot?
It's a third pound of meat. We put it on a big old brioche bun.
So it's a big round hot?
Yeah, it's
pretty big.
It's
a Bigfoot.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all ever had our jumbo. We upgraded and went big.
You went big to the Bigfoot. And So the Bigfoot is real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's at Dario.
That's awesome. But, of course, any restaurant that puts their customers first, and obviously you're putting the community first when you get behind the Invictus Project. So you yourself, did you not? It seems like I saw a number on you. Did you get a chance to walk?
Oh, yeah, I ran. Did better last year, I believe, but, it was fun, getting beside your team and running with them, and it's exciting to keep it moving. It
is. And so, for those of you who want to look this up and have some fun, just with a little study, which it may be a big study, depending on how you want to look at it, that, again, if I could convince, or Satan decided he was going to convince Eve something about the face of reality, okay, because this is a reality rescue. And so it's almost like he said indeed. Right? Instead of, a lot of translations may say yea or whatever, but what he really said is indeed, or from a Hebrew standpoint, look at the face of God and you think that he's everything to be trusted, but, are you sure? and interestingly, I found it fascinating. The next time you see that word that way, is when Joseph interprets the cup holder's dream. He comes back and the baker says, "So, indeed, I had the same dream." Well, no, you didn't. That's a lie. He didn't have the same dream. His head got lifted off, and guess what happens to you, buddy? I mean, I'm just saying. You see what he did? He said, "Well, if you look carefully, it says, well, I had the same dream." No, you didn't. And Joseph explains that to you. Well, here's the other side of that. Well, the next time, and again, that's if you want to look it up, it's in Genesis 40, verse 16. And the next time you'll find it is in Numbers 16:14. And you may remember that these guys broke out against Moses. It was called Korah's Rebellion. And one of the leaders of Korah's Rebellion was, in fact, this Dathan character. If you ever watched the Ten Commandments, he was really portrayed as a pretty bad guy. But anyway, he's the one the ground opened up because he tried that Olaf treatment. Don't use that word. Satan used it on Christ. It's something to think about. We're going to be right back with a whole lot more as Invictus running. And you're going to be amazed at the guests we have lined up. But we're so grateful for Dario and for the Petty Family Foundation, Carolina Custom Finishing, and the Equitable Finances, all sponsors of the Rescue Run. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true.
today on the Christian Car Guy Show. How fun, but with a very serious issue at hand. We're at the Invictus Project's 5K run today in Asheboro, North Carolina. If you go to invictusproject.org, you can find out so much more about them, how you can pray for them. Certainly they're in the midst of the battle, as we described, you know, the way that the exploitation of children, especially sexual exploitation, in new ways based on what's going on with the internet. Boys and girls, don't think for a second. And in fact, when it comes to that sexploitation, they call it, 90% are boys. Like, get real. I mean, think about it. How much easier it is to lure a boy with a picture than it is a girl. And then they do crazy stuff. And, you know, since COVID, they've been cloistered by their devices, whatever they may be, and they've been groomed that this is what you do, and they've seen stuff that they shouldn't have seen. And so, as Jerry pointed out so beautifully, I think, in the very first segment, conversations with our kids. Like, you know, they've got shame all over this, and it's not something they're just going to come out and say, hey, Mom, guess what I saw on the computer today? That ain't happening.
Well,
right?
you know, and plus the thing is, if we have a car, an automobile, we're not going to leave the key stuck in the door, invite a thief to get in and steal it. You know, what are we doing with our children, with the devices they have? We've given a lot of people taking advantage in evil ways the key to our children through those devices. So it's something we need to make sure we manage and have those conversations.
And so we're very lucky to have so many gifted people in this that God has raised up in the battle. And we have Tammy Carnes with us. She is with A21, and they have their own run coming up. So Tammy, you know, give us your thoughts before we get into your event of you know, how God called you into this.
Yeah, thanks so much. God called me into this as I was contemplating retirement and wanting to. I was an executive at a company, and I wanted to do something to give back to my community. I come from a background that did have sexual abuse as a child, so the children are. It's just such a passion to me because in the days I grew up, and all of you, I'm dating myself. We had stranger danger, we had DARE in the school, we had a lot of things that kept people out or educated our children not to bring them to the house and to walk away and to find an adult that they trusted. But now the grooming that happens with human trafficking and just what the Invictus Project has done just in the past year with the local sheriffs, finding these children, the predators that are going after these children, through the game rooms, through the chat rooms. I have grandchildren, and it just scares me to death, and I'm constantly talking to them. To your point, educating the children, making sure that they understand these people aren't friends. We've desensitized our children through Facebook, right? Oh, I have 100 friends. I have 1,000 friends. So I think it's just so important to bring awareness. So I'll jump into, I'm a walk host for A21. A pleasure to be with you all today.
What is A21?
A21 is a mission to bring awareness of human trafficking.
So what is
A21 stands for,
there you
I was
go,
getting there. It's Abolish Human Trafficking in the 21st Century. It was started 15 years ago. And the walk that I am hosting in Graham, North Carolina, is to bring awareness, but the walk is worldwide. So everybody worldwide, because A21 has offices worldwide, what they do is reach through the hotline that they work with the national hotline, and then recover people from all over the world, working with law enforcement. And then they actually have a Freedom Home in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they restore victims of human trafficking. Right. So they are the advocate. I was just recently at a U.S. Attorney General conference. They actually are an advocate to work with the child or the adult and work through the legal process with them as they go to convict these predators.
Right, because if you can convict one predator, obviously you rescue numerous children that would end up being victims, and it's amazing, you know, all the work that goes into, you know, what that happens. And so as these organizations like A21, like the Invictus Project, you know, they need our prayers because God is rising it up, and they need resources. Obviously, they you know, money. They need people. right? You heard,
Yes.
they went from 4,000 cases in 2019 to almost 30,000 this year of this type of internet, kind of stuff that is not, again, the stuff of the past, but the stuff that's happening right now. And so when you think about that conversation, Jerry or Tammy, that right? Like, son, I know you would never look at one of these pictures, but if you ever did, I would sure hope you'd come talk to me. But I just want you to know that this is what they're doing. They're getting kids in your school, so you need to make the other kids aware. They're getting kids in your school. They are. To send pictures back, and when they send those pictures back, the next thing they know, they're getting another says, now that you've done that, if you don't send me $500 in the next 20 minutes, I'm sending this to every one of your friends on that social media or every game chat person that you're connected with. I know who your parents are. I'm sending them the picture. I need $500, and I need it in 20 minutes. And if they don't do that, then they actually send out the pictures.
Yeah.
Because they got nothing to lose. Well, then you've got a boy or a girl, as the case may be, that now has, what am I going to do? My life is over, because they don't have any way to figure that. And so the next thing you know, they're thinking about suicide.
They're young, they're immature, and they can't. As an adult, it's hard to process some of that stuff. As a child, it's extremely hard. And Fonda will tell you, a good friend of mine, Fonda Bryant, that does the Wellness Action Organization and does the suicide counseling and training, will tell you, I mean, right now the biggest uptick is kids, and it's not just teens. I mean, we're talking preteen kids with suicide.
Right, because unfortunately, we don't have the social outlets that. So,
That's right.
Since we got you, Tammy, what else did you want to make sure you got said?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that people understand the walk that we're having, and it's an awareness walk. So it's to educate. I learned the other night on a call where we were just catching up on last year's walk that there were several people that participated in the walk and one spectator that actually learned the signs of human trafficking, realized they knew somebody that those signs applied to, and were able to rescue two people. And that's just in the United States.
You convinced me. What are the signs?
So a person being, now for the children, right, they're being controlled by another person, but it's in the dark, right, through these game rooms. Right? Make sure you know, because stranger danger was outside of the house. Inside of the house, they're coming in and we don't even know it. So inspect what you expect. Great way to raise children. So controlled by another person, controlling their movement. So you're trying to get somebody, that you want to go somewhere, and they keep saying, yeah, I'll be there, but then they never show up. Or they look nervous when they're talking to you. They don't have eye contact. So low self-esteem, typically the vulnerable are preyed upon, especially our children. Overly fearful, right? If they're very standoffish, you just need to know that sometimes these people are the older people, not the children. The children can be controlled and deceived. The older people are being held, their passports are being held. I mean, I know we're talking United States a lot of time, but overseas, I mean, when they bring people over to the United States, they hold on to their passport and then make them work for free and they just don't let them leave. So they're held hostage. And the problem with that,
unfortunately, sometimes that work is beyond horrid, what they consider their work.
It is, and the really hard part is, you've probably heard, you've seen some of the movies, but, the victims end up feeling like their captors are the person taking care of them, right, whenever they're in that situation.
And which makes it that much harder.
It makes it much more difficult to report.
And for recovery, right? Because if you think that you're being taken away from the people that really provide you with everything, and you were groomed to be that way.
Yes.
Now you find yourself in this strange environment, people I don't know, and I've been taken advantage of by everybody that I've met in the last 2 years, horribly taken advantage of. Then all of a sudden you see the need for these homes and extensive care to get people, I love what it says on your shirt, abolish slavery, because that's what happens, and we all become slaves, right?
Yes.
But we, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, this is a reality rescue.
Yes.
So that evil is way more evil than you ever, good is way more good. Like, God's way better than I could ever imagine, but evil's scary. Like
it is. It's straight from Satan. It's a great deceiver. I mean,
it's more horrible and so dark and so, and it's all meant to enslave and separate people from God.
And to your point, Robbie, I got that right?
Yeah.
To your point, I think that's why people don't talk about it. That's why they're not aware of it. I presented to a church recently, and they were like, "That's the sheriff's job."
No, well, we're going to get to. We got the sheriff coming at you next.
Wait a minute.
We got the sheriff just to do that.
This is all of our jobs.
It is.
We are reporters. If we know something, we need to say something. So anyway, the last thing I'll leave you with, because I know you've got a lot of great guests to be on here.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
It's a reality rescue today on the Christian Car Guys Show, and we are live today in Asheboro, North Carolina for the Invictus Project 5K run that is going on here, and I'm shocked by all the amazing runners and walkers, and I think they've all made it back to the finish line at this point in time, but it's been going on as we gather around this idea of bringing awareness to the exploitation of children, and they are being exploited in ways I never would have dreamed, like we talked about all during the show, that I have no concept of how good things can be, how good God is, how truly amazing he is, and I have no real concept of reality of how evil Satan is. And as we begin to get awareness of some of the strategies he's currently using to essentially exploit our kids, boys and girls, it's long since they're it's just girls. No. When it comes to this sexploitation, 90% of them are boys because they're easier to lure by the pictures. And then the next thing you know, they get them into this situation where they send pictures back, and then they've got a boy, and they're telling them to send money. They're telling them to send more pictures. They've got them, and what they end up doing to them with the shame and the humiliation, and at some point in time, he's going to be revealed to all his friends and all that stuff, and it leads to suicide. It leads to horrible things. And so as we get a chance to pray about this, God's raising up events like this around the world, and certainly if you go to invictus.org, you're going to find out more about that, or we just had somebody on here with A21.org, another organization. But wonderfully, for those of us who are on the Truth Network, our world headquarters happens to be in Forsyth County. And so our sheriff there is Bobby Kimbrough, and he has his executive assistant wonderfully with us today, Alicia Coleman. And Alicia, welcome.
Thank you.
And
I'm so happy to be here.
And tell us your involvement.
Yes, so the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office is in partnership with the Invictus Project. We have a sworn officer who fights against this terrible disease that's in our community. But we are here to make sure that we curtail this violence and help put a stop to it.
Right. And so I imagine that you're like me. Like, I can't even believe the things that these people have figured out to exploit our youth.
It's unimaginable. It's an unimaginable evil that we pray against, we speak against, and we fight against, and we're out here doing what we can to capture these villains who is hurting our children. It's unacceptable.
And so how awesome is it, from my perspective, that something like the Invictus Project comes along, which links the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department with the Randolph County Sheriff's Department, which links, and tell us about those connections.
The connection started with Sheriff Seabolt, and he reached out to the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office and asked Sheriff Kimbrough to be a part of this. And because the sheriff is very community-oriented, he jumped right on it.
Right.
To be a part of the Invictus Project. It was a no-brainer to the sheriff. And if I may,
Yes, you may.
he also is very involved in another community event that I am here for called Never Walk Alone. And Never Walk Alone is an addiction awareness event that Sheriff Kimbrough started in 2019 that we have put on every year with the exception of COVID plaguing us. But this year we're back at it. It's going to be held at Bailey Park in downtown Winston-Salem on September the 14th. And this project that the sheriff is working on is because too often people are facing addictions and finding themselves stigmatized in our society. And we're fighting alone with limited resources for recovery and wellness. And because the Truth Network is a Christian organization, we base this off of Corinthians chapter 10, verses 13, that God is faithful and he will not let us be tempted above and beyond the ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape that we may be able to endure it. How can you endure this? With community. You are never alone. We are here fighting for you. And
that brings up, I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, but what I want to just say real quick is because of just the fact that we don't understand, sometimes make the connection with addiction. Even everything we've talked about today, there's an element of it that draws it all together, because addiction, you look for a way to find an avenue for that, and all of a sudden that leads you into all of these other
slavery
things. Yeah.
And the thing of it is, in all addictions, you think you're the only one.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody to know, because that brings all the shame that you think is going to happen. And so walking alone is the real slavery. Is you think you're alone, but you're so far from alone.
You are so far from it. And this event, we want you to come to this event. We have over 25 exhibitors showing up to let you know you are not alone. We are here for you. As a law enforcement agency, we are normally reacting to things. We are reacting to violence. We are reacting to different things that happen in the community that people call 911 and say, hey, I need help. But this is one of the ways through the Invictus Project, through Never Walk Alone, that we can be proactive. And we can say, we are here for you as a community. We're providing education. We're providing resources. We will have food trucks and all of these things for you to be able to come and eat, for you to be able to share. We will have a memorial board for those who lost loved ones to addiction, where you can write your loved one name on there and receive a memorial gift as a token of love, so that you know you are never alone. We are always here for you, and we want you to know that. It's not just, you're not by yourself.
Right. And again, it's, as you think about it, as overall, it's climbing 20,000 feet, and you go, look what God's doing. In other words, evil can throw all this, but all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose, etc. For God's glory. It's happening, and the good news is you get to be part of that. Like right now, as a result of you listening today, you learned something, I'll bet, that about how people are being exploited, things like that, and you now are a spokesman, and God's given you the ability to pray, right, to speak into this. When you're given the opportunity. But certainly, Jerry, if you got kids, if you got grandkids, have this conversation, because so much, Mommy, you know what you said could happen? It happened, right? But if you haven't had the conversation, that's about the last thing they're going to come talk to you about, because that is not necessarily a comfortable place for them to come speak to you unless you've had conversation.
You have it before the crisis hits. When you're in the middle of a crisis, it's hard to have those conversations, especially with a young child. And now when I say young child, it could be an 18, 19, 20-year-old. It's just hard.
It's like we have talked about for years, Jerry. Before you have that car accident, you need to know, what record service am I going to call? If you're sending your daughter to college, and before her car breaks down, you need to know, where can I send my daughter to go? In other words, be proactive with this stuff, because believe me, the reactive part of any addiction is a horrible place to find yourself. However, you're not alone.
That's right. That's right. You are not alone. And on Saturday, September the 14th at Bailey Park in downtown Winston-Salem, come on out. We want to show you that you're not alone.
Do they need to go on, sign up, go online? Is it just open? Just walk in, you're welcome.
You can just welcome, and it is open. You can go to our Facebook page at Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. You can call me at 336-917-7420 at the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office.
We gotta sign off and remind all our listeners, right? Slow down. Jesus walked everywhere he went and got it all done in 33 years, and we're so grateful for the time that you spent with us today. Remember, pray, pray, pray. God bless.
God bless you.
This is the Truth Network.